Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Yankees take 2 of 3 from the Cleveland Guardians at Yankee Stadium. They lost 2 out of 3 in Cleveland earlier in the year, and this time they're able to take 2 out of 3 at home. And really, thanks to great pitching from their frontline starters, Carlos Rodon and Max Fried. They're able to win games 1 and 3. And it's really been a thing where the Yankees, specifically game threes, whether it be avoiding sweeps or completing a sweep of their own or winning a rubber game, they seem to do a very good job in last games of series and, mostly third games. I mean, they got to be one of the better teams in baseball in that stat. And that's encouraging, obviously. That's the way you want to do it. And a lot of the times it has been win game 1, lose game 2, win game 3. And in some ways, I guess it was kind of lined up that way with their pitching, where, nothing against Clark Schmidt. But, he's certainly not as high in the pecking order as Max Fried and Carlos Rodon. Didn't help the Yankees offense was completely shut down in game 2, scored no runs against Luis Ortiz. But we'll talk about that when we get there. But what's really of note that I want to talk about to start this episode is injury related news. So it does turn out that Luke Weaver goes in the injured list with a hamstring injury. And Jeff Passan reported that he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So figure he'll probably back, give or takes, middle of July. I would expect him to miss all of June. That would be incredible if somebody made it back by the end of the month, but I don't think so. And so that now puts the Yankees in a tough spot in the bullpen. There's now Devin Williams, who did get the save in game 1. It wasn't without its nervousness, and there was a run allowed by Devin Williams, but he is now the closer again. So getting another opportunity. We'll see how that goes. But it also just moves everyone, further up on that totem pole, which can be challenging. We'll see. You have to think the Luke Weaver being out is probably going to cost the Yankees, a game or two, probably. But maybe not. Maybe not. It didn't affect them this series. It didn't. Whether Luke Weaver was healthy or not, they were going to go 2-1. What I feel sad about it for Weaver is like he was someone that was going to make the All-Star team, unless he somehow totally dropped off in June. He was going to be someone that was really destined to make it. Now, with this injury, I have to think that's going to be highly compromised. Like, even if he somehow makes it back in time, this is a significant chunk of time that he would miss. So that's a sad thing for a guy who's, really bounced around and is taking some time to find, his way in this league. So that's an unfortunate break. But for the Yankees, look, you'd rather him get hurt now than later in the season. As far as corresponding moves and things of that sort on the pitching front, Fernando Cruz returns, and Fernando Cruz pitched in game 2. He did allow a homer, but he looked pretty good. Got a couple of strikeouts, looked to be himself. So that's good to get him back. And then Carlos Carrasco was on the roster for that last game against the Dodgers. He has since been designated for assignment. He's now back with Scranton. So expect him to kind of, if they need, some arms and they're kind of short on bodies, expect him to be up. That's kind of what his role is going to be. And Yuri De Los Santos, who was sent down to get Carrasco up, he's now back. De Los Santos, I don't think we saw him in this series. I don't think we did. Even in game 2, I don't recall that De Los Santos was in there. And now on the offensive front, Jazz Chisholm Jr. does return and made a pretty big impact as well. I mean, it's a really big home run in game 1. Honestly, that was probably the biggest. Looking back on it, it was a tie game, and he homers in I think it was the 7th inning. And had 3 hits as well in game 3. Now, look, game 2, there were a lot of strikeouts. I think there's still a lot of work to be done for Jazz Chisholm Jr., but definitely good to have him back. No question about it. When you think about the fact that he, replaces players that really ideally would be on the bench or in AAA. So Yorbi Bibas, unsurprisingly, is the one that gets sent down. Kind of figured that would be the case because he has options. And, now you're looking at a situation where it's, Jazz Chisholm Jr., he is the Yankees' third baseman. It's interesting how things change. where he was the second baseman before he got hurt. Now, last year, he played third. Gleyber Torres was at second. Now, it's kind of twofold. I think the main reason, I don't know, it's not worth necessarily say, hey, what's it more about? But I think it's a combination of the fact that um, there's more of a open trade market for second baseman, more available out there. And also, DJ LeMay has been pretty good at second base. Those are the two things that I think are playing into this. I don't think they want DJ playing third. And I think that's a sound decision, but also everything being equal, I think it's more important about what Jazz is comfortable doing. But I think when you add in the trade element, then I get it. And look, I think with more work, Jazz can be a decent third baseman. We'll talk about a play that wasn't, like in game three, that wasn't great on Jazz's part. That kind of reminded me of a World Series game last year, game five against the Dodgers, unfortunately. But, and if nothing else, it gives Jazz a little bit more versatility too. Like, because, I think he feels probably more comfortable at second. Now, look, even if it causes some problems and maybe it does cost him an interim, I think Jazz feeling better at third and getting more reps there probably is just good in general, gives them more options. So I don't really have much of a problem with it. I think that you can poke holes in it, but I think it makes more sense to not for Chisholm Jr. to be playing third base and DJ LeMayu to be at second. So now, um, you know, Peraza, kind of more of a bench role. Although he did start, in game three. I think it's going to be kind of a platoon between LeMayu and Peraza, with I think LeMayu getting more of the lion's share of opportunity. But we'll see what happens as far as that goes. But let's kick it off with game one. And the Guardians, look, this is a team to me that um, certainly I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the playoffs. Um, the American League is pretty wide open. Granted, the Tigers are really making their mark on the Central for the division lead, but as far as wild card teams go, I think Cleveland is certainly going to be one of those teams in that mix. And the Yankees tend to face Cleveland a lot in the playoffs. I mean, just like last year in the American League Championship Series, and it just seems like that's a common opponent for the Yankees. And the Yankees, again, they lost 2 of 3 in Cleveland. So it was nice for them to win this series. Like I said, going in, getting a sweep was certainly possible, but Cleveland is a scrappy team. Um, and again, a very solid team that really, kind of wins in the margins, right? It's obviously Jose Ramirez is a major part of what they do, and Stephen Kwan at the top of their order, but it's really for them, it's about pitching, speed, and defense that really, is enables them to get these wins. Game one, Carlos Rodon was really good. And Carlos Rodon has been very good against Cleveland. I think back to the playoffs last year. I think back to this year in that first series where the Yankees avoided getting swept by the Guardians. But Rodon wins to improve to 8-3, 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. ERA is down to 2.49. Carlos Rodon is very likely bound for the All-Star game. Again, if there is no injury, right? Like, it's one of those things where, if it were decided now, I have to think that Carlos Rodon is on that list. Even understanding there's a lot of good starting pitchers out there. Rodon's numbers are hard to ignore. And he was very good in this one. For the Guardians, Tanner Bybee was on the mound, and Tanner Bybee kind of just ran out of gas, really. He was pitching really well. He ends up losing to go to 4-6, 6 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. But what really killed him was he gives up back-to-back homers to Chisholm Jr. and Volpe in the seventh. He was really keeping the Guardians in it, where the Yankees, Rodon was pitching well, but the Yankees really weren't doing a whole lot. But they finally kind of got to him at the end. I think Bobby ended up throwing 107 pitches. So that's the thing. The way I saw it. In this game, and this is sort of the last injury update, and I should have mentioned this sooner. Jason Dominguez, he's back. Came back in game 3, missed games 1 and 2. So I think that thumb issue that he dealt with in that Dodger game, the third game, I think it seems like it's behind him now, which is good news. He played left field, didn't seem any worse for wear. And so that's a bit of good news, right? You got the bad news on Luke Weaver, but ultimately with Dominguez, back in action. So he was, not surprising, the odd man out. And they gave Austin Wells a blow after he had played each of the Dodger games. Yes, they did have a day off on Monday, but JC Escara would be behind the plate in this one. So, um, a scoreless game for quite some time. Again, Bobby and Rodon really, doing a good job of matching zeros. In the bottom of the fifth, it would be a situation where Tanner Bybee, he had a no hitter uh, with one out in the fifth. In fact, he had a perfect game, two outs in the fourth until an Aaron Judge walk. So he was really shutting the Yankees down. And then the Yankees get kind of fortunate. Jazz Chisholm singles on a play on a in an at bat where the probably should have called strike three. Um, for sure. And so the bat continued, and then he kind of just dunks a single in front of left fielder Steven Kwan. That's a play that I thought that should have been made by the Guardians that wasn't. Yankees eventually kind of take advantage where JC Escarra walks with two out, and DJ LeMahieu, again, coming off of that 4-8 game against the Dodgers, gets a big two-out opposite field RBI single to knock in Chaz Chisholm Jr. So that's big right there for LeMahieu to that's what he used to do, right? Like two out, runners in scoring position, line drive to the opposite field base hit. So that makes it 1-0 Yanks right there. And they had a chance for more. Ben Rice grounds out sharply with the bases loaded in that inning. One thing I want to say with Ben Rice, and there's praise here, and then there's not praise here. Ben Rice is hitting the ball extremely hard, and I think he's one of those guys that, as a Yankee fan, he's one of the top 4 or 5 players that you want up there on, on this team, right? Of course, there's Judge, there's Cody Bellinger. Even though Paul Goldschmidt's been a little bit cool lately, there's Paul Goldschmidt, right? And we know that's just to name a few, but Ben Rice is on that list. Unfortunately, though, Ben Rice's numbers of runners in score position are very, very bad. And I don't think that's talked about, and I don't want to necessarily make that a thing, but I noticed it after a double play he had in game 3, so I want to just get that out right there. So he needs to improve, and maybe some of it's bad luck. Maybe it's him hitting in, hitting into bad luck, but it was surprisingly awful. It was like 6 for 37 or 6 for 38 runners in scoring position. So hopefully he can improve on that because really, eye test wise, he looks really good at the plate. Then let's go to the top of the 7th. Now, there was a fan interference situation in the 6th, which was interesting, involving Aaron Judge, which, you know, Angel Martinez ends up being called out on that, but, fairly inconsequential on the whole. There was 2 outs. Even if he gets on, maybe nothing goes there. But Carlos Rodon finally runs into a little bit of trouble in the 7th. And it was a very sort of sloppy inning all the way around for the Yankees, but ends up not being disastrous. So Jose Ramirez gets a single to start it out for Cleveland. And really to that point, they did not have many hits at all. I actually, let me get that correct count as far as how many hits they even had. Um, it was just 2 hits that were allowed in the first inning by Rodon. That's the thing. Rodon and Fried really held the Guardians down from just a hit perspective. But Ramirez gets a single on a play where Carlos Rodon maybe could have tried to stab at the ball, decided to let it go, and it kind of went through. So I understand why he didn't, but unfortunately, Volpe wasn't positioned in a way to get it. And then Ramirez still second. JC Escarra has been easy to steal off of. I think it's an 100% success rate as far as steals versus Escarra. So as much as Escarra has been good as far as framing pitches and doing a good job of catching a good ball game, he does seem like he's someone that you can steal against in pretty easy fashion. But then the next batter, David Fry, gets an RBI single. But some blame goes to DJ LeMahieu, who has mostly been pretty solid at second base. Credit where it's due, but that was a play that he kind of misjudged. And I guess it would be unfair to call it an error, but you have to acknowledge, like, I can't just say, okay, David Fry RBI single and not bring up the fact that LeMahieu could have made the play or at least kept it in front of him. Instead, he doesn't, and Jose Ramirez scores, and it ties it up at 1. Then Santana lines out to Bellinger, and then Gabriel Arias singles on a ball that is above LeMahieu. Again, LeMahieu, I feel like, and this is maybe being a little bit too critical, he struggled, I think, with line drives that I feel like if he leaped and timed it right, or maybe had the hops for, he could grab it. But there's been a few situations where it doesn't get it. And again, I'm not going to harp on that. But Arias ends up being too aggressive because Trent Grisham kind of Grisham a little bit too nonchalant, and ends up kind of working to the Yankees' benefit as he kind of struggles to corral the ball, but in just enough time, he throws it into second, and LeMahieu makes a nice tag, and Arias at second. That's huge because if he gets in there safely, it's second and third, 1 out. Or if he just stays at first, it's first and third, 1 out. Instead, he's out, and so now it's runner on third, 2 out. A major, major play in this inning that cost Cleveland greatly. And Arias probably in hindsight should have maybe, especially knowing like you're the trail runner, to maybe just back off there, but he's out. And then a Will Wilson walk leads to first and third, one, two out, and Bo Naylor flies out. So Rodon was pretty much at the end of the line at this point. Uh, Even though his pitch count was in a great place, but he had such a heavy workload in that seventh inning that this was basically it for him. Luckily, Rodon's win is back in play because Chaz Chisholm Jr. homers in his first game back. Just went out, short porch and right at Yankee Stadium, his eighth homer of the year. And then Anthony Volpe, back to back. Volpe hits his seventh home run, both off of Bybee. And so Rodon is in line for the win again, and the Yankees take a 3-1 lead. So a real big turn of events. That's top half of the seventh and bottom of the seventh. That was the inning of the game, obviously. Bartheletta Jr. comes on in the eighth for the hold, and he gets the hold. There was a walk to Stephen Kwan next in, but other than that, gets the job done, gets his eighth hold of the year. And so then let's go to the top of the ninth, as it is Devin Williams' time. And it actually starts out pretty well. Manzardo flies out, and then Carlos Santana works a great at bat. He could not put Carlos Santana away. A 9-pitch at bat, which ends in Santana getting a double. Then he strikes out Gabriel Arias. But again, they're working Williams' pitch count. Daniel Schneemann pinch hits for Will Wilson, and Schneemann in between the first and second base hole gets an RBI single that knocks in Carlos Santana, makes it 3-2. So Devin Williams, again, we're in a situation now where Daniel Schneemann steals second. So the tying run is at second base, but luckily, Devin Williams gets Bo Naylor to fly out to Cody Bellinger in left, and he hangs on for his 6th save of the season. So the good news is it's not as if Devin Williams was losing the zone. Like, he was, for the most part, throwing strikes. I think the concern was he wasn't putting guys away. He did get that one strikeout. So it wasn't like it was all bad, but of course, Devin Williams allows a run as a closer. It's a scary proposition with him in the ninth inning. And I think it's going to be a situation where I think it cost the Yankees a little bit in the interim. I wish it were more of a committee situation, but I understand that Williams is going to get the first crack at it, but he does ultimately get the save, and the Yankees win game 1, 3-2. Game 2 pretty much ends in the first inning. And the thing that frustrates me with the Yankees, and I don't know if the stats necessarily back this up, it feels as if in situations where the Yankees go down by a decent sizable amount early, which doesn't happen often, but when it does, it feels like they're just kind of done. Like, they gave up 3 runs in the first inning, and I almost feel like if Schmidt had scattered those runs around, somehow it would have been different. Again, I don't have like the stats to fully make that factual, but just based on what I can tell this year, Yankees have had their fair share of comebacks for sure. But when they're down by multiple runs and it happens right out the get-go, I feel like the Yankees are not necessarily responding with runs early, and then it kind of just feeds into the rest of the game. So the Yankees get shut up by Luis Ortiz after the Yankees really did a good job versus Ortiz in Cleveland. But Schmidt, he struggled versus the Guardians that first time around, so they kind of have his number. Although give Clark Schmidt credit, because after the first inning, he really settled down and actually ended up going 5 2/3 innings. The loss drops into 2 and 3, 5 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts for Clark Schmidt. For Luis Ortiz, the win moves up to 3 and 6, 5 2/3 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts. Again, Jason Dominguez was out, and Austin Wells back in. Paul Goldschmidt, I think in both games, was batting 5th, which again, against righties, expect that to kind of be the case. They've been going with Grisham 1, Rice 2, Judge 3, Bellinger 4, so on and so forth against righties. And I guess expect that to probably continue. So in that first inning, leadoff walk Stephen Kwan, which you can't do, and then Angel Martinez, 2-run homer, ambushes Schmidt. First pitch of the at-bat makes it 2-0. Then a Jose Ramirez double. Schmidt almost gets out of it. He gets a couple of outs, but with 2 outs, Daniel Schneemann with an RBI double to make it 3-0 Guardians. So not a great start, and Luis Ortiz just kind of locked in. There was a couple of double plays hit by Anthony Volpe in this game, which wasn't great, but Aaron Judge strikes out looking in the third with 2 on and 2 out, but not a whole lot of chances for the Yankees to get much done. They were really just kind of silenced. Brent Hedrick gets the last out of the top of the 6th, replacing Schmidt. Hedrick did a pretty good job in relief. Again, it was a Ben Rice double play after a leadoff walk by Grisham in the 6th. Tim Herron, the lefty, comes on to replace Ortiz and gets Cody Bellinger to ground out on a play that the Yankees challenged. It was close, but I'm not surprised it wasn't overturned. Hedrick pitches a scoreless seventh inning. You get a double play by Volpe, the second of his two double plays in the bottom of the seventh. Fernando Cruz in the eighth gets a couple of strikeouts to start against Ramirez and Santana, but Kyle Manzardo hits his 11th homer of the year. It makes it 4-0 Guardians. Actually, Cruz struck out the side. So, that's encouraging, even though the home run you don't love to see. It's 4-0 Guardians at this point. Hunter Gaddis pitches a 1-2-3 eighth inning for Cleveland. Tim Hill pitches a scoreless ninth for the Yanks. And then Emmanuel Clase, who's struggled against the Yankees, he gets the job done here. Got a little bit dicey, honestly, as he allows an infield hit to Ben Rice, a one-out ground rule double by Cody Bellinger, but then he strikes out Goldschmidt looking and Chisholm Jr. swinging, and the Guardians tie up the series at that moment, 1-1. So now we go to game 3, the rubber match, and the Yankees get it done. And they had the advantage when you look at the starting pitchers. Max Fried bounced back in a major way after his bad start against the Dodgers. He picked up his first loss at that one, but he gets the win here, gets to 8-1, so he matches Carlos Rodon as far as wins with 8, which I believe is, at the very least, American League leading. I know Robbie Ray, I think 8 is the lead number. It's possible someone has 9, but again, impressive nonetheless. 6 innings for Fried, only 1 hit, which was a really fortunate sort of pop hit in the infield by Jose Ramirez in the first inning. No runs, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. They really worked his pitch count a lot in that first inning, and Fried's pitch count was in a rough place. So the fact that he gave the Yankees 6 innings was very impressive, and it's what you're looking for. Fried, specifically at Yankee Stadium, has been fantastic. His ERA drops to 1.78, which is one of the best in baseball. And then Slade Ciccone, the former Diamondback, loses he goes to 1-2, 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. He was solid. He was fine. Just makes a few mistakes in the 4th inning. Paul Goldschmidt would be on the bench in this one. He'd be coming for defensive purposes. But again, I think versus righties, expect Paul Goldschmidt, especially because he's been struggling lately. Goldschmidt's probably going to be on the bench a decent amount of time versus righties, which isn't a talking point now, but I think it will as time kind of moves on here. And even furthermore, when Giancarlo Stanton comes back, Stanton, I think, might be starting a rehab assignment possibly next week. So the Yankees might be getting some reinforcements back in the near future. But yeah, Goldschmidt would be the odd man out. And then DJ LeMay would be out. Oswald Peraza would play second base. So expect to see Peraza more at second now that Chisholm Jr. is playing third. So the Yankees, again, Fried gets, it was kind of looking like a very easy first inning, but Ramirez gets that fortunate hit. He basically goes to second on a error by Ben Rice on a pickoff attempt. Ramirez steals third. David Fry walks. David Fry steals second. But he finally gets Carlos Santana to pop out after basically throwing, I think, right around probably 30 pitches in that first inning. But he slowly starts to, get better as far as pitch efficiency. But Cleveland really worked him, but they didn't really see much in the way of results. But in the bottom of the 4th, with 1 out, Aaron Judge doubles opposite field. Then Cody Bellinger, he is able to connect on a 2-run homer. 9th homer of the year for Cody. First homer in a few weeks, but a big one, and it gives the Yankees a 2-0 lead. Then, the 5th is where Ben Rice grounds into a double play with the bases loaded, no out. So again, need to get him going as far as runners in scoring position. And then an intentional walk to Aaron Judge to face Cody Bellinger flies out, which was interesting because Ciccone gave up a homer to Bellinger the last at bat. So you're seeing teams be a little bit more aggressive as far as intentionally walking Judge, regardless of the situation, but it works out for the Guardians. Then where do we go from there? Bottom of the 6th, Jacob Junis comes on. And there was a situation where the Yankees could have scored more. Dominguez strikes out where Chisholm Jr. had just gotten a third on a steal of second and advancing a third on a throwing error by catcher Bo Naylor. And then Austin Wells flies out. So a little bit of a missed opportunity there. Then the 7th inning gets dicey. Mark Leonard Jr. comes on. He really didn't even get hit hard. It's a lot of bad luck. Single for Jose Ramirez. David Fry strikes out. A Carlos Santana well-placed single to the opposite field. And then Gabriel Arias reaches on what was deemed a throwing error by Volpe. This was reminiscent to Game 5 of the World Series last year, from where Volpe tries to get the force out at third and Chisholm Jr. was on third. A little bit different, not quite the same, and the stakes were completely different, obviously. but not a great throw by Volpe, but it's one that I think a more experienced third baseman makes the catch. It was one that Chisholm Jr. could have caught and didn't. I wasn't sure where the error was going to go. The error did go to Volpe. That usually happens. The person that throws it is typically the one that they'll give the error to, but I think it's one where, again, if Jazz gets more reps at third, I think that's one that he can catch in the future. So Mark Leiter Jr., he ends up getting the whole Leiter Jr., which is his ninth. And Tim Hill comes on. Now, Tim Hill pitched the night before, and Hill gets the job done. He strikes out the lefty Bo Naylor, and he gets John Kenzie Noel to fly out. So a huge, huge job by Tim Hill, where the game could have totally turned. He is able to basically get out of it completely unscathed. And the Yankees keep that 2-0 lead. And then at the bottom of the seventh, the Yankees score a couple more runs. And it would be a combination of against Jacob Junis and Colby Allard. Allard, the lefty, would come on to face Cody Bellinger with first and second and 2 out. And Cody Bellinger has been really good against lefties. He gets an RBI single to make it 3-0. And then Chisholm Jr. with an RBI single to make it 4-0. So that was big, gives the Yankees a little bit more breathing room. In the eighth, it would be Tim Hill, who pitches a 1-2-3 eighth inning. So he ends up getting 5 outs, picks up his 5th hold of the season. So Hill, who kind of had a little bit of a rough patch at one point, I feel like he's really gotten out of that and has really done a very good job. And then Jonathan Loaisiga pitches a very solid 9th inning, which was good to see, because Loaisiga struggled in his last outing versus the Dodgers. He pitches the 9th, not a safe situation, but still a 4-run game, which the Yankees do basically treat as saves. So Loaisiga 1-2-3 and he gets a strikeout. Yankees get the shutout. They win 4-0, and they win the rubber match, win the series against the Guardians to improve to 38-23, which is good because the Rays and Blue Jays are on a bit of a heater. They have been winning ball games lately, so the Yankees are 5.5 games ahead of both teams, 6 on the loss side. So, important the Yankees continue to win games, and now the Boston Red Sox come to town, and the Yankees face the Red Sox this coming weekend at Yankee Stadium, and then next weekend at Fenway Park. This one, again, the first meeting between the two teams this year, the Red Sox coming in, not playing well. They just lost the series to the Angels. They're 30-34. Alex Bregman's out with injury. There's, been a lot of controversy surrounding Rafael Devers all year, as far as like the fact that he's no longer the third baseman and they want him to play first, which he kind of refused. So he's basically been DH only. So not a great start for the Red Sox. I mean, roster wise, they got players. I mean, especially when they're fully healthy, but pitching's been a bit of a problem lately. And, so they're kind of coming in cold, but they always play the Yankees tough. They really do. And so I'd expect this to be a very competitive series, regardless of anything else. And it'll be Walker Buehler against Will Warren for game 1. So Will Warren looking to bounce back again after his really bad out against the Dodgers. And Walker Buehler, the last time he was at Yankee Stadium, he pitched the 9th inning to clinch the World Series victory for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So, adds a little bit of something there. And it's the first time the Yankees will face Walker Buehler as a Red Sox. It's been a bit of a rough go for him in his first year with Boston. And then game 2 is a much better acquisition for the Red Sox. And it makes more sense. I mean, Garrett Crochet is more, of someone that's in the Red Sox future than Walker Buehler, that's probably seen his best days more behind him. Garrett Crochet has been great. One of the best pitchers in the American League. He will take on one of the hottest pitchers, though, in Ryan Yarbrough. So battle of lefties. This one should be interesting. It won't be easy at all. But Yarbrough has done a great job of keeping the Yankees in ball games, and hopefully that continues. Game 3 will be between Hunter Dobbins and Carlos Rodon on Sunday Night Baseball. So this one on paper favors the Yankees the most. So again, kind of the blueprint that I'm seeing is finding a way to split the first 2, preferably game 1. Crochet will be difficult, but again, Yarbrough has been great. But, like I said, and maybe it's the same formula that we've seen a lot lately. Win game 1, lose game 2, win game 3. I could maybe see that happening in this case here, in this Red Sox-Yankee series. It will be the first of many meetings between these two teams. This one being Yankee Stadium, and we'll see what Yankees can do here. But a quality series win against the Guardians for the Yanks, really led by Carlos Rodon and Max Fried, pitching very, very well in their respective starts. And now we'll see what they can do to finish out this homestand against their rival, the Boston Red Sox. in a 3-game set at Yankees